Hello and welcome to Off Topic, the show where pretty much we all just speak out of our butts and hope that everything sounds kind of fun to listen to. So this week we're going to be talking about teaching and education in general because I am an education major, so I have a little bit of experience or knowledge in this area. And I've also just kind of looked into education around the world and stuff because it's really fascinating how things differ. Most of us have not actually done serious research into this, so we're just going to start kind of discussing things and see where it goes. So to start off, I'm curious what everyone's thoughts are on education, like public education, homeschooling, private institutions, America's education system in general, all that kind of stuff. If anyone's got
America.
any initial thoughts, America.
America.
I
Okay.
mean, it's better than nothing.
Right?
It gives us
No,
something
but
to
I
do
guess
at
we
least.
can start off by discussing what's the point of education? Like,
To educate
why do
you.
we have schools?
To educate you.
Yeah,
I'm not
you
wrong.
learn numbers and stuff.
Nope. Because the thing that came up last week that caused us to come to this topic, I think, was we were discussing why do we learn all these things that aren't related to what we're going to do for the rest of our lives? Like, why do we have to learn all this math if I'm just going to teach kids how to read? Why do I have to learn all this science if I'm just going to build buildings or something?
Build bridges, yeah, something like that.
That kind of stuff.
I think it's more of it helps you find what you actually like doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I definitely think that's part of it, is exposing you to things that you could do, and also just generally expanding your brain, getting your general knowledge to increase, and
Yeah, it's
your
good to have general
capacity
knowledge.
and your capacity for things to increase, basically.
Right. Yeah, because that's one of the big things that I think a lot of people don't necessarily think through is a lot of times there's things that we learn that aren't necessarily going to be relevant in our day-to-day lives, but that can be really helpful when it comes to actually just thinking and being a functioning human of society. Because especially with the internet nowadays, we see a lot of people who are getting pretty uptight about things being right and accurate when they clearly don't know what they're talking about, and don't know how to critically think. And I think schools are supposed to be doing that,
Yeah.
making sure that humans can go about and do the things the way they're
Yeah.
supposed to.
Like, most importantly, just generally, as you said, thinking critically and being able to really understand concepts in general, and being able to grow their knowledge beyond a point of just standard learning, because learning is beyond just a point of education, because learning is something that you do throughout your entire life, is you're always learning new things,
Mm-hmm.
always having new
Exactly.
experiences, discovering things. And I mean, that stands true for humanity as well. We're just by nature a very curious species. We explore things. That's kind of what we do. That's our whole shtick.
Our whole stick.
Our whole stick,
So
the entire stick.
the whole stick, the entirety of it. One of the things I think that most perfectly illustrates this is geometry, because obviously there's a lot of people who do not like geometry. Um, are either of you guys those people?
I don't know about geometry. It's not my favorite thing, but I don't mind it.
Okay.
I remember enjoying geometry to an extent. Unless you're talking
Okay.
about proofs. Once you get into proofs, things get a little spotty. But that's not like real geometry anyway. They just teach you that during geometry.
Okay, so fun fact, proofs is actually exactly where I was going with this. Because
Oh, of
I
course it was. I hate
freaking
you.
love proofs.
I hated proofs
I
so
love
much.
proofs. Proofs. I mean, okay, figure out angles using a compass. That was pretty cool. I liked to draw the half circle and then half circle, and you can recreate this without the actually accurate. What's the thing that measures the angles?
Something or other.
Protractor.
Yeah.
Protractor. That's right. No. Yes.
Yeah.
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 Protractors measure
Protractor.
Without
angles.
using those, you can copy angles. That was pretty cool. Like proofs. Proofs were actually my favorite thing because it was like one of the reasons I love math is because it's just logic but with numbers. And it's just like here's puzzle solving just with like not pictures or words. It's just a different type of puzzle. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. But then proofs took it to another level where it's like logical deductions and like fallacies and all that kind of stuff. Like it all kind of comes together. And one of the reasons that people get mad about it is because like if I see a triangle, I can tell it's a triangle because it's got three sides and they're connected and that's what a triangle is. And then they get frustrated because they're like, I don't want to have to prove that it's a triangle by using all this other stuff. But then when I saw it, what my mind immediately went to is like, okay, this is like maybe a little redundant feeling, but if you look at it from like standard side, like outside perspective, how do we know it's a triangle? Who looked at a triangle and said, yeah, well, these sides are all connected, and we can just tell that that's what it is. And how do we know that like all the things actually work out? And obviously, proofs become a lot more intricate with like, how do you know this is a square, not a rectangle? Or how do you know that this is a parallelogram instead of a rhombus? Like those kind of things. And just being able to apply the logic of, well, this angle is this much, and we know that that means that this other angle is this much, which means that these all angles are all the same, yada, yada, yada. It's like, it's just really interesting to me. And I think what a lot of people miss is that, like, the whole point of proofs was to explain how we think through things and actually understand what we're talking about instead of just knowing, you know?
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm not saying that just because of that you have to like proofs. I still get that it's like kind of frustrating and not everyone's cup of tea.
I
My brain is just wired in a certain way that makes it a lot easier to understand.
I think personally that like the proofs as a concept are fine, but when I don't like memorizing what the laws are called.
Yeah, that was the problem that I had
Like
too. Was
it's like really annoying when you're like parallel lines are have this like certain property and it just makes sense, but you have to have some certain name for it
yeah,
that
that
you
was
have
the
to
difficulty I always
memorize.
had.
It's really annoying.
Was the actual
That's
wording for it,
totally not.
But other
because
than that,
you had that
I'm not.
like stupid list of whatever where it was like this thing does this thing, and then this next thing does this next thing, and this next thing does this next thing, and this other thing does this other thing, and it's like,
That's my only complaint with proofs, though.
yeah, like proofs as a concept. I think that proofs is cool as well because I also am very logically minded and find math to always be kind of like a puzzle game, which is part of why I've always
Mm-hmm.
loved math, is just because I'm very logically minded, and it's a logic game. Um,
Right.
and like I never enjoyed history as much, not for lack of trying, just because it's not logical, because people don't make logical decisions. But that's the people's fault, not mine. So I'm pointing at them. I'm pointing fingers.
You know what's very interesting? I've always been like like a math and science person, but like recently in college, I've been having a plenty of fun in like writing classes too. So I don't know, which is
Yeah.
weird because I
It's
never
always
really liked writing.
I've
Yeah.
always liked
Um,
I've always liked writing, never always been liked it, been pretty good at it, but never able to actually like, commit to anything, which I think is just ADHD popping off. But like I've always been a very like I say I like math, but then I also really like words and language, which like has tripped out a couple of my professors in education when we're talking about like, well, some students are really good at this and some students are really good at that. And it's all about like what type of intelligence you have. And I look at the tests that they give us and everything. I'm like, I'm split pretty evenly here, guys. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
yeah, I
I
don't really
always
think
loved
that
writing.
is very true. I mean, there's some people who like math and hate writing, but I don't think that's the only possibility.
Yeah.
No.
Well, is they'll put a puzzle in front of us and be like, "This is a language puzzle," and they'll do really well, and they're like, "Yeah," and then they'll do the math puzzle, and then I'll do really well, and they're like, "That's sus," and I'm like, "Sorry, guys, I'm not trying to show off. I promise."
I feel like
Question: are puns just language puzzles?
oh,
Ooh,
100 riddles definitely
I
are.
don't know if I would
Riddles at least are language
riddles.
puzzles.
Yes, puns are like I don't know how to describe them.
Because the award for solving a pun is humor.
Ooh,
I feel like
that's
puns are uh
mm,
like exploiting a pun by nature is exploiting a peculiarity in language. Um, and I feel like it's related to language, but I wouldn't say that it's a puzzle per se.
Hmm.
an Easter egg. Puns are just language Easter eggs.
I don't
Yeah.
know. That thought just popped in my brain, and I was like, huh.
No, there's definitely something to it. It's just fun to think about. Definitely,
Yeah.
not sure you can like, huh?
Doesn't really matter either way.
No, but now my brain's latched onto it. So okay, what were we talking about? I don't even remember now.
Um,
Edumacation.
education.
Edumacation.
Ah,
Going
yes,
away
that's right.
from math and science. Do you guys remember, like, I don't know if it was middle school or elementary school, when talking about Columbus and like how he discovered the Earth was round or something? That was like a myth, right? That, well, it is definitely fake, but like, where did that come from?
Wait. You're saying that the Earth being flat was fake, right?
Well, okay, yeah,
Okay,
but like,
just
there was like something. I don't know
needed to
if it was
clarify
taught
that for
to
the
us or it
viewers.
was just a stupid rumor that Columbus discovered the Earth was round, which is false because the Earth is round and they knew that before Columbus.
Oh, okay. Well, I not everyone knew that it was round before Columbus.
No,
Well, I
not
guess,
everybody
but
did.
like,
Columbus kind of no, he didn't even prove it once and for
Columbus
all that it was around.
standardized it. Pain.
yeah,
He
But he
he
was definitely like he was the one who kind of made it widespread,
well, he didn't even
sort of.
go around the world is the thing. He thought he did, but he did not even go around the world. He if
Nope.
even if Columbus had gotten to where he had gotten, the Earth still could have been flat. See what I'm saying?
That's crazy to think about.
But I think
exactly
I
what
think
I'm
he started
saying.
the explorations towards the west that kind of led to eventually somebody actually going around and proving once and for all that the Earth was round.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure the like some scientists. I mean, there's using the stars. You can prove it without going around the world.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Well, that's what you
I'm
had been
sure there's
saying is
some people knew about it.
yeah, that's what you had been
I'm
saying
pretty
is
sure
that
the
they
Vikings
knew
knew like
before
long
that
before
even.
everyone else.
Yeah.
But it's like the people who did know were not the people in power. So like the modern world would have called them the crazy ones. And for whatever reason, they never explained why Columbus thought it was round. Do they? Like all I remember is they're just like, no,
Yeah,
this guy
I'm
just
pretty
had a
sure
hunch.
like
He was just like,
other scientists well just knew that, and Columbus used that to to theorize that they could reach somewhere by going around the world or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
India.
That's all he did with that.
He wanted to get the
He didn't really do
spices.
anything else.
Yes, this is true. He wanted to go to India and thought he went to India, but he
And
was a
that's why,
fool of a man.
oh, but not a fool of a took.
Not a fool of a took, just a fool of a man. He is not a hobbit,
He
believe it
did
or
not
not.
get such an honor.
No.
My
Wait, you're telling me Columbus is
our
not a
brothers
hobbit?
listed as took in
No,
my
Columbus
contract.
is not a hobbit. Believe it or not.
Wow, really?
He went on an adventure, but that did not make him a hobbit. The standards of hobbits is a little blunt. I think he was also kind of fat too. So like he got two requirements, but
Well, the funny thing
didn't
is that
quite reach them all.
the in the book The Hobbit, it's all like, oh, hobbits are not that adventurous, and then we have between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, we've got 6 or 5 of them that just kind of go off and do their thing. And it's like, well, the
To
Uh,
be
Hobbits,
fair,
they're super.
it might be like they're not very adventurous, but when they do, it's legendary or something. I don't know.
yeah, to be fair, it wasn't so much that the hobbits were adventurous. It's that one hobbit got roped in by Gandalf,
It's like Gandalf was
and then
adventurous.
that hobbit had a yeah. Gandalf was adventure. He was the extrovert that brought all the introverts along, made sure
Yeah,
that they were actually doing things. Because then he gets Bilbo along, Bilbo gets the ring, and then the ring drags Frodo along. And Samwise isn't adventurous; he's just brave and like willing to help Frodo. And then Merry and Pippin were just trying to steal some carrots.
I was gonna say Merry and Pippin are just idiots. They're the fools.
They wanted the carrots, and then got attacked by like haunted horseman things.
Speaking of books, did you guys have any go to many book fairs when like in
All
middle
the time,
school and stuff?
Oh, I
All the
remember book
time?
fairs with
all the time. But like
a passion.
we were poor, so we didn't get them a lot. Like when I got a book from the book fair, it was a big deal for me.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. It was like maybe having like 4 book fairs a year or something like that. Maybe 3.
Oh, and
Um,
you'd
and
get the
Yeah,
catalog
something like that.
beforehand.
and you would get 1 book.
And yeah, but you would like spend an entire week just like looking at all the books that you wanted, and you're like, these are all going to be here, guys. We got to be ready for this.
Yeah,
I hope they still do those.
I
Like,
hope
I
they do
really hope the
too.
kids are still like.
I
That's
hope it's not
just
like online.
oh, that would
Ugh.
make me so sad. Kids need to be able to like just walk in and see the books just physically there.
Yeah, it's a staple of childhood.
So, speaking of online, what are your guys' thoughts of like online schooling?
Um, uh, horrible education wise, but it gave me a bunch of time to learn other things, so that was nice.
Yeah. Like what? Like just kind of random hobbies or anything kind
No,
of cool?
I learned how to use Unity and make video game
Oh, that's pretty funky.
over COVID.
That's rad.
Yeah, I think that online learning is like at a college level, it's definitely something that it makes it much more accessible. Online learning is more
Yeah.
accessible, I would say, at every level, but it should only be utilized really unless you have no other way to get
Yeah,
to the school or whatever. It should only be utilized at a
Mhm.
college level.
I actually have an online class this semester
I think I
because
had one
the
next
person who
semester.
teaches it is like far away.
That's funky.
But it's like a wellness class, so it's not even important.
Oh, yeah. No, so valid. Yeah, I did not enjoy online learning, but I know there are some people who did, and I don't. I wish I could pick their minds because there were some people who were like legitimately thrived there, and not just like mentally they were doing great because they didn't have to do school. Like they were actually doing well in online schooling. And I don't know how they did it, but
I remember
I
enjoying online schooling just because it allowed me to get distracted so much easier.
yep,
Like
exactly.
instead of actually doing stuff, I would go and scroll through YouTube.
Yeah, it was like stupidly easy to cheat during online school. I didn't do that too much, but
I didn't cheat. I just got super distracted and got absolutely nothing done.
I know there's plenty of people who decided to just like cheat through all of their stuff.
Oh,
And they're not
100%.
ashamed of it either. Which like props to them for being honest, but also the people who had the guts to tell teachers to their faces that they cheated in their classes over COVID. I'm like, that's gutsy. That
Yeah.
is power to you, I guess. But like, wow.
Isaac, as an education major, what are your thoughts on cheating?
Yeah, so obviously, like, it's dumb. I
Yes.
think so. That kind of segues into another really interesting debate, which is like grading in general. Because as we discussed, like the point of education is to kind of like teach you to be a better citizen, teach you to like get into whatever career you're going to be doing, and just make sure that you're like a competent part of society. Um, and cheating in the end really only hurts you because it means that instead of getting the education that you want to be getting, that you need to be getting, that you should be getting, you're like cheating yourself out of that by like saying, "Oh yeah, I'm doing fine. I don't need to work on this. I don't need to study this or like ask for help here." And I think that's like obviously it hurts the system. It
Yeah.
hurts the teachers like trust in you, and then obviously most importantly it hurts you in that like you're not actually learning anything.
Yeah, cheating's
Um
definitely not worth it.
No.
yeah.
I never.
And also like so often it gets caught. Like teachers aren't stupid. There might be times where they miss it, but like the amount of people who cheat, like I'm gonna be brutally honest here. When people are cheating, they're usually the type of people who aren't gonna be good at cheating. Like those who are smart enough to actually cheat and get away with it are the people who don't need to
Oh my
cheat.
god, I have a
Yeah.
story that I
Oh,
might have
shoot,
told Liam
go for it.
before.
Oh
I
boy.
had it, it was really funny. So, you know how regions exams for like I had like an algebra regions exam. I was it was in 8th grade for me at least. And basically they have like all the security to make sure you don't get anything in, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I during the school year, I was learning how to make little programs on the calculators, the graphing calculators in school. So I always made these little things and I figured out you can just archive them so they never get cleared.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I got one of the calculators that had an archive program in it in the Regents exam test.
Oh.
That's crazy.
No, I've not heard this
so,
story.
so it was crazy. I mean, there was nothing useful. It just made a little pattern across the screen, but still funny.
That is goofy.
Fun times.
I know they always
But yeah,
acted
so
like
that's
clearing
like
those calculators
general.
were going to do anything. If anybody actually wanted to, they could just archive stuff. Because I also experimented with those calculators a little
Yeah.
bit, and I discovered that they had like coding potentials. Very minimal, but like
Mhm.
still it was there, and you could have had potentially put together entire programs that could calculate things or cheat.
But the
But
ones who needed to cheat wouldn't know about that.
no, they wouldn't
Yeah,
know. No, exactly.
exactly.
Because they're not the nerds who are fooling around on the calculators.
And that
Back
also,
to grades.
yeah,
I
grades.
think the
Right.
problem there's like a weird thing with grades because if I don't know how do I say it, like having fun learning is not like if you're just trying to get good grades, you're not going to have that much fun learning anything. But if you actually try having fun learning things, then you might get less grades, which is weird. I don't know.
Yeah, and
Well,
you.
and the other trick is when people make learning all about grades,
Exactly.
like you're losing focus on actually educating them.
That's what I
So like when
mean.
people have just excessive tests and everything, it's like great. So now you know how well they know this stuff, but they're not actually learning anything. And that's why like AP exams drive me insane because it's like great, you can test how well they know this stuff, but I'm not going to learn anything from this exam. I'm going to learn how to take this exam, take the exam, and then I'm done. Like I don't get to see my actual exam and like see how I did, figure out, get constructive criticism. I don't like all that knowledge is going to be kind of useless because it's just how to write a response to these three documents that I'm never going to actually read again. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
And
I
it's
think
I forgot what I was gonna say.
I think the grading also feeds into the stress load that goes on to students that's placed on students as well. because I think that's something else very important to be discussed when we're talking about education is the amount of stress that students are put under. Because some people handle stress very well, and some people don't get very stressed out by school. But there are other people like me and some of my friends who either don't handle stress well or get stressed out easily, and especially by school, or a combination of both. And those students do not end up learning the greatest from standard teaching techniques. And so it's kind of like grades, yes, they're important, but they also, I feel like, put a lot of pressure on students. And like, I never ended up with having any trouble with grades, um, at least not to the point that I wasn't going to be passing. But there was always the stress there that was kind of like, oh, I have to do well. I have to. This is important for my future, especially in high school, where it's like, this is kind of what I need to
Right.
be doing and succeeding at right now. And so it's just,
And it's so
Yeah.
hard because like without grades, how do you motivate people? Because
mhm,
like you need to have something that pushes people to do better, but then you don't want it to be the end all be all.
And
yeah,
also, without grades, how are you gonna tell who's actually learning and stuff? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, like the teachers would have to have some sort of like even in a world where you abolish grading, whether or not that's a good idea. If you get rid of that, the teachers would still need to have some sort of internal grading system to track how the students are doing,
yeah.
Yeah,
because
because
otherwise they
like
can't
if you
effectively
go through a
teach.
class and learn absolutely nothing, put no effort in, you you probably should retake it.
Mm-hmm.
But if without a grade, how do you know which students are doing what?
Well, it's also interesting because I
Right.
remember learning about, in, I believe it's in Japan, they have, um, like esports schools where they're experimental, smaller, like private schools where they have like a class of like a single class of like say 20 kids who are really into video games, and that's kind of what they do is video games, and they do other additional teaching as well, but it's a lot more lax, and it's like there are a lot of things where it's like kids who are skipping school constantly feel much more comfortable in these settings where they're doing something that they enjoy doing. And it's like, of course, this is at a high school level, um, because younger than that would be kind of foolish. Um, but like,
Hmm.
it's just something interesting, kind of experimental, kind of brings experimental schooling techniques into the picture.
Mm-hmm. Looking at other countries' education systems is just very fascinating because there's so many different styles, and honestly, there's no great way of measuring which ones are better or worse. Because a lot of people will like really harp on America's school system, but I think a lot of the problems with the American school system come from the culture of America rather than the system itself.
I would agree with that,
Because
yes.
a lot of the things,
Yeah.
a lot of things you see there that people complain about, it's like, well, see, that wouldn't be so much a problem if like America was better. The reason other school systems will work better in countries like Italy or Germany or Sweden is because the culture itself pushes school in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, there is some like benefits and like things. So it's like, okay, no, there's definitely something you could learn there. Um, and I don't know enough about most of their school systems to like actually speak to any of them really. I've done research and learned about German schools, so that's kind of it.
Um, I heard this from my mom. I don't know where she heard this from. Maybe she did research. She went there once, but in China, I'm pretty sure there's like one test that kind of determines everything, like where you're gonna go and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems like a little too much for one test.
Yeah, it's like sure maybe they have. I mean, China's got lots of problems, obviously, but like maybe there is some efficiency there, but just morally that feels really sketchy.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, the other thing is that I was last night hanging out with family, and my uncle and his girlfriend brought me home, and my uncle's girlfriend is from Poland, and she said that when they're 15, they take a test that kind of measures your skills and like your mentality and kind of figures out what kind of job, what kind of schooling would be best for you in the future. And now it's not necessarily a say all end all kind of like this is what you are going to be doing, but she was like
Hmm.
when she took the test, she got stuff that said that she was going to become a teacher, and she hated the thought of it, and she's a teacher now.
Interesting.
Is she
So
like
it's
enjoying being a teacher now?
yes, she loves being a teacher.
Okay, so it's not like she went and became a teacher and regrets it. She like legitimately was like, oh no, the test was kind of onto something.
No,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think like a personality test like that, not like graded or anything, but just to like give you the right direction. That might be interesting.
yeah, I think that's kind of
I
along
kind
the
of do
lines of what it
wish.
was. Kind of, it assessed
Hmm.
your personality and your strengths, your weaknesses, kind of what sort of stuff you were interested in based on how much you knew about certain topics, stuff like that.
That's fascinating. Because Germany does a similar thing where around I think it is the same age of like 15ish, right in the middle of their like secondary schools. Um, I don't know how they sort it out. I don't think it's based on like a single test. I think it's kind of based on like overall grades and like performance in schools. But they sort them in to like three. I think it's primarily three different types of schools, which is gymnasium, or the Realschule or the Hauptschule, um, which are like three different levels. The gymnasium is like the top level. That's where like all the high academic honors type kids go. And that like does a lot of academic training. And at the end, if you pass this certain, it's an extensive exam. There's like a written, spoken, etc. Like it's a multi-process examination. But once you pass that, you get free tuition into any university you choose, and the country will just pay for it. But you have to
Wow.
like go through this rigorous thing to try and get there. Then the real Schule is a little more like our high schools, where it's like there is certain academic stuff, there's certain stuff that's just like general education, and then at the end of that, you can either choose to go to like higher education, which you would have to pay for it, the government would like fund it, or you would could go straight into like the workforce. And then the last one is like kind of it's a vocational school, but it's not what we think of as a vocational school. Like it's more just training you to be an adult and get into the education or workforce. Um, and it's not that one or the other is better. It's just here's based on what you've been doing, this is what's going to be best suited to you. And then they go there and they still have options to like go elsewhere.
Yeah, kind of based on
Hmm.
your
Which
skill level.
yeah, skill level, just like what you're able to do, what you want to do. If there's certain people who maybe could go to the gymnasium, but they just haven't been putting in the effort in school, then they're not going to put in the effort when they get up there. So it's not worth like you don't want to bother wasting their time sending them to a place where they're not going to put the effort.
Yeah.
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 And I think that is one thing that America could do a little better on is just like the general figuring out where kids go in the future. Because so many people, like American culture, very much has this mindset of you finish high school and then the smart kids go to college. And if you drop out of college or you drop out of high school and go into the workforce, then you're like a lesser civilian or whatever. And it's just a very dangerous mindset because then kids feel forced to go to college when they don't know what they want to go to college for, when they really don't know what they want to do with their lives, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
may come out with a degree they'll never use. Some will drop out early and feel like they wasted their time. It's just like being in college. I will defend college. There are some people who take it way too far and say that college as a whole is like a broken system and that like you shouldn't go to college because it's a waste of money because it's just a bunch of like capitalism crap, whatever. And that like kind of triggers me.
Yeah.
But I think there's very much America does have the wrong mindset about college.
Yeah, kind
And
of clumping kids into the
that
smart
sucks,
or
but like,
stupid kids is kind of
Yeah.
insulting almost.
hmm well, and because like there's so many people who just legitimately don't need to go to college because they know what they want to do. They don't need a higher education for it, and they're set. But then there's other kids who go to college because they still don't know what they want to do because high school didn't like provide them the resources to find that. And it's like it's just hard. And because of the way culture in America is, it's just not built to help kids find that future. Which is
Yeah.
I don't know how we would fix it, but if
Do
we
you
were to
know?
take one thing from other countries.
Do you know what's weird? I actually had like so we took like a personality test, and of all classes, Spanish. Like one of the later high school Spanish classes. One of the things we did is we did like a personality test, and it told us like what kind of jobs typically people with this personality go to.
Uh-huh.
It sounds similar to what you're saying about like Poland or Germany,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is which is kind of funny how it was Spanish where that happened.
Yeah, I
Well, I think
remember
I took a
taking
thing like that. Let me see if I can find it. Continue.
yeah, I remember taking personality tests and stuff in psych.
Hmm. But in Spanish it was specifically like a website made to find jobs. Like
Yeah, in Spanish of all classes,
Yeah.
that's a little strange.
it was a little strange.
Okay, that's not what this was. I had one thing that I knew I had saved. I don't think I saved the other one, but we did a similar. Like it was, you go to this website, do the thing, and then it gives you like your top 20 or something jobs, professions that you would be good
Mhm.
for, based on the types of areas that you're interested in and good at and stuff. And it was kind of interesting because it was like it wasn't based on skill; it was just based on what would you be interested in.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty accurate. There were some people who like got farmer or like funeral home manager that they were a little confused by that, but
Yeah.
I got
I got
I'm pretty sure I got like doctor or something, and I'm like, nah, I
yeah.
don't like that.
You're
Mine
I
smart
might,
had
I
enough
like
don't
I
know.
for
think
it. You're smart enough for it. You
teacher was
just
like number 5,
it's a lot more work than I think
musician,
you'll be willing to
artist,
put in.
I don't feel like going to medical school.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like something
a
that
real.
you would be passionate about.
My friends who are nursing majors, I do not know how they do it. They like freak me out. 'Cause, like sometimes they don't know how they do it, and I'm like, how are you still here and like able to do this and not just like in a ditch crying right now? And usually it's because they were just in a ditch crying, so they cleaned up and they're like ready to face the world again for a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah,
Yep, yep.
No.
so
No.
real. So this is just random mini tangents. It's not necessarily related to education, but as an education major, my other thing, like the two things I was deciding between when I was going to college, was like either becoming a teacher or going into the film industry and like trying to make movies. Um,
Hmm.
and so one of the things that like kind of randomly popped up a couple months ago was just I realized that there's like people who do education on film sets,
Hmm.
like people who do it for actors, because there's like obviously kid actors who need to still be learning while they're taken away from us to film these TV shows and movies.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was like a really interesting idea. I'm like, I never thought about it, but I could become like I could try to become a whatchamacallit, like an on-set educator. And that just seemed like a really interesting thing that people don't really look at.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I've got no clue what like the benefit because like one of the obviously teachers don't get a lot of money, which needs to be fixed. I don't know how. I don't know when like where the money would come from. Obviously, just like teachers need to be paid more. So I don't know what the money would look like for those. But I feel like one of the things that it would lack is all like the benefits because the one thing teachers do get is like
Yeah, I
you
was gonna
know
say they get a lot of
lots
benefits.
of like lots of benefits.
Yeah.
I
But
I don't know. I haven't I don't really know if I'd like teaching, but my sister went
what's
into
your major again?
teaching
Sorry.
computer science.
Fun
But
times.
my sister went into teaching and my dad's a teacher, so I might also like teaching. I don't know.
You could
It's
teach
like so
computer
weird. I don't know
science.
how. Yeah,
Exactly. You can teach anything.
there's there's all sorts of like teaching needs. It's a
I
very
was gonna
strange
say.
profession because like I don't know who wakes up and just goes, I want to be a teacher. I want to teach people things and like stay in school my entire life. But I don't know. And it's so weird because like usually it is families that have teachers that will like have kids that become teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like obviously not guaranteed, like in your instance, but like usually whenever I tell someone that like, oh yeah, I want to be a teacher, like, oh, was your mom a teacher or was your dad a teacher? And I'm like, well, I mean, my mom was a preschool teacher, so like kind of, sort of, but it's just interesting because it's like there is a strong connection, and I don't know why it's hereditary apparently, but
I think it's based on a lot of it is your demeanor and how well you do with kids, which I think is tied to mental state, which is definitely tied to something that is hereditary. So I do think that there is
Mhm.
some
I just
legitimacy
got
to
like
it.
real deep with that,
Yeah.
brought out the real answers.
So I do
Respect,
think that there is
but
some
yeah,
connection to it being kind of like if kind of being hereditary where it's tied to mindset almost.
Hmm.
I would imagine at
well, and like
least.
if your
I do
parents
not
are
know
your
this
role
for sure.
models, I feel like in certain regards for like people who have grew up with good families, if their parents are teachers and they like look up to their parents and they want to be like their parents, then obviously like that would make sense. It's like a
Yeah,
logical
that too.
conclusion there.
hmm Now, something I did want to ask was what everybody's thoughts were on homeschooling versus public schooling versus private schooling.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm. Um, if you don't have the money for no, for private school, and you don't have the time for homeschool, then public school does fine enough. I don't know much about the other two, but in as far as I've seen, I don't think private school seems worth it.
No, that
Private
was kind of my thought process
schools
as
also
well.
generally don't pay their teachers a lot.
Homeschooling, it really depends. I don't know.
Yeah, I was asking because I know that Isaac and I both we were homeschooled for various years of our education, some of them together. Um, and so I have at least some grasp of homeschooling. Um, and it's
From a
definitely
student's perspective,
it's a lot more flexible. I do have to say that.
It does seem a lot more flexible.
It's a lot more flexible and it
I
feels like
learned a
there's
lot of time management.
yes. But I feel like there's almost you can wring more like information out of like your education in general with homeschooling and it's a lot again it's a lot more flexible so people who with higher or lower stress tolerance could have an easier workload. It's a lot more malleable and I feel more accommodating.
Hmm.
The other the trick with homeschooling is like who's teaching and who's doing the schooling because obviously it's not going to work for everyone because
Yeah.
people come from different backgrounds that like some people might need schooling to like get out of the house and away from their family. Some people might need access to like outside sources just to like get a breather from their family or from their home or like if they live in an orphanage and can't get schooling there like obviously there are definitely situations in which you can't just switch full homeschooling mode or just times where like maybe they can and it wouldn't be harmful but their parents aren't necessarily equipped to teach either because they're too busy with like whatever their job is, or because they just don't know how to teach. Like that could be a problem.
Yeah,
But
that's the other thing
I
is
also
it
agree
puts a
that
lot of pressure on the parents oftentimes.
like going through education and how to teach and how to be a teacher and stuff, like, oh my gosh, there's so much to it. And like trying to homeschool a kid when you've gone through none of it, like hats off to everyone who's tried it and done it successfully or like even remotely successfully, because oh my gosh, there's just like trying to make sure your kid is learning and understanding what's going on in the world. It's it's hefty workload.
Plus the stuff that you don't think about, like all that paperwork that you have to do behind the scenes, that like you don't think of
Hmm.
teachers as having to do like a lot besides teaching. There's a lot of paperwork involved.
And obviously, like there are pros and cons to the structured versus homeschooling, which is unstructured, more unstructured than public schooling. Like there's obviously structure to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just I think there's definitely pros and cons to both. I really liked being both homeschooled and public schooled because I think it gave a good perspective into both worlds and allowed me to see it from both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for public school, there's also the component where you get to you see more people, you can make more friends at public school, but at the same time, there's also bullies at public school, so
Yeah.
kind of balances
Well, and
out.
I know some people like to homeschool specifically to avoid like their kids being exposed to things they don't want, which I think is valid.
Yeah.
But then there's some people who take it too far. Also,
Yeah.
just to be clear here, being homeschooled does not explicitly mean that you don't get social interactions. And I'm not saying that you were like trying to say that. Like
Yeah,
I'm not.
no.
Yeah, I'm just like making it clear for audience viewers. Um, like when me and Liam were both homeschooled, it was there was like it's hard to explain, but it's called a study center. It's sort of like a co-op in which a bunch of families get together and do it, but it was a little more structured than a co-op. Um, which was homeschoolers who got together and like took classes, just not in a standard official public schooling setup. It was more of like a structured homeschooling group. Um, and so like that was we had a lot of friends there and we would get together and we would do things during like study breaks when we had like 40 minutes to ourselves. We would all just get together and like create our own like stupidly intricate games.
Oh my gosh. Do you remember my games? Some of my games were
I
obscene.
remember your
Hit
games
50
vividly.
plus 50
They
plus
like they
different
started off so
stat
tame,
types.
and then
What?
you had like
Yeah.
equations that were longer than most calculus equations. Yeah,
Yeah.
needed a graphing calculator just to calculate how much damage you did when you rolled a die.
Well, because I
Oh my
designed it to be
god.
as realistic as possible, so it was based on a lot of different things. Your strength, your how
Calculated
well you
everything.
could hit things, how much damage your weapon would do, all these various different things. So there was like for damage alone, there was an extensive equation and like 6 different variables that went into it.
Oh my god.
And then
It
there
was
was
obscene.
Patrick who just ran games where like you could do anything. And he's like, all right, guys, we're playing Black Market today. So me and my friend were like, all right, we're gonna set up a dating website, but then intentionally make the dates set up with like the worst possible options. And then eventually evolved into like making a dating website for criminals that criminals could pay to keep their information secret and find other like criminals. And then we would sell that information to the cops so that when the criminals went on dates, the cops could catch them. And there was like no rules in that. You could just do whatever the heck you wanted.
That is an
Yeah.
amazing plot. I
Yeah,
wonder if that
so
actually worked.
we had plenty of social interaction. And like obviously homeschoolers when they're at home can often go on like field trips and go to the zoo or hang out with kids in their neighborhood or whatever. So there is to sum it all up, there is ways for homeschoolers to be a part of
Socialized.
society without being
Yeah.
in public school. Yeah. And also a lot of homeschoolers like are homeschooled because their family is Christian, which means they're still going to church, which is another social setting. So there
Yeah.
is
I never knew
obviously it's
this.
not universal,
Kind of
but
crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
there is there is definitely socialization for homeschoolers, depending on how it's done. Some parents might go a little overboard, and that's where like the whole lack of structure gets tricky because there's no way to like make sure that it's done right, since you can't really like grade kids on social interactions.
Yeah.
Like
I knew there had to be
logistically or
something,
ethically
but I
too.
didn't know what. So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I
I mean,
said, that's why I really liked having both exposures because it meant that I have this like kind of double-sided coin view where I can see them both. I'm like, I see the pros, the cons of both sides. And when some people start like going off about how one is better than the other, I'm like, guys, just take a breath. All right, we can meet in the middle.
that's kind of how I look at it, is that there's, yeah, pros and cons to each, which is the case for anything, but it's interesting to kind of have that vision that a lot of other people don't have, where I can see kind of, as you said, both sides of the coin at the same time, where it's like just,
That's about an hour. Do we
Education.
want to sum it up there, find another host, and wrap it up for the week?
yep, it's been about an hour, so
I mean, I could probably keep going for a while, but I don't need to keep pushing it. I think we've
yeah,
had some good discussions.
we
All
definitely
right, who
have.
Yeah,
who hosted last week?
I did.
I was gonna say Cosmo did, so I'm assuming I'm hosting next week.
Liam,
Plot twist: I make myself host next week again.
Oh my gosh.
dear God.
We're gonna do an FDR, guys. I'm just the only host now. Deal with it.
He's the
Nah,
only
Liam,
host
you
now.
can take it.
I can take it from here. Yeah.
This is
Go for it.
Okay. This has been Off Topic, a podcast where we do things and say things, and we don't usually know what we're talking about. This has been Isaac was your host, me, Liam, and Cosmo. We will be back next week with more shenaniganizing. But for now, so long, and farewell to all you listeners out there.
And thanks for all the fish.
And thanks for all the fish.